20 doctors tried everything to save him, but nothing worked. A billionaire's life on the line, and they failed. But then the unthinkable happened. The black housekeeper spotted something no one else did. Something so shocking, it turned everything upside down. What did she uncover? You won't believe the twist. It was a crisp, cold morning when the unthinkable began to unfold at the mansion of one of the richest men in the world. Julian Croft, a billionaire who had built his empire from the ground up, lay motionless in his grandiose silk-covered bed. Before we continue, tell us where in the world you are watching from. Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy this story, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more powerful content like this. His mansion, a sprawling estate overlooking the cliffs of the Pacific, should have been the epitome of luxury. But now, it felt like a tomb. Every corner of the mansion echoed with silence. Only the faint sound of footsteps from the nurses and doctors who had been rotating in and out of Julian's room for days. For the past month, Julian had been bedridden, struck by an illness so strange, so sudden, that no one knew how to cure him. His body had begun to wither away, his once muscular frame now fragile and gaunt. His skin, which had once glowed with health, was now pale and cold to the touch. Even his sharp mind, once as quick and cutting as his business instincts, seemed dulled by the fever that raged inside him. Doctors from across the globe had been summoned, hoping to diagnose and treat whatever this affliction was. One by one, the finest minds in medicine had entered his chambers, bringing their expertise in high-tech equipment. But despite their combined efforts, Julian's condition only worsened. "His vitals are fine," one doctor said, shaking his head. "There's no clear cause for his symptoms. I've never seen anything like it." Another physician who had flown in from Switzerland ran more tests, his face growing more concerned by the hour. "It's not cancer. It's not a viral infection. It's as if his body is rejecting itself." For weeks, they tried everything: experimental treatments, new age medicine, and ancient healing techniques. They pumped him full of every possible medication, hoping to see even the smallest sign of recovery, but nothing worked. The finest doctors in the world couldn't save him. The mansion, once filled with the laughter and energy of the wealthy, now stood silent. The air was thick with the weight of impending doom. Julian's family, having watched his slow decline, were desperate. His wife, Clara, sat by his side, praying for a miracle. His children, once busy with their own lives, now gathered around the mansion in fear. The entire Croft family was shaken to the core, their once proud patriarch fading away before their eyes. But there was one person who refused to give up hope, a woman whose name wasn't even on the guest list of doctors: Elena. Elena was not a highly educated scientist or doctor. She wasn't even a family member. She was the black housekeeper who had been with the Croft family for nearly 15 years. Her role in the grand mansion was to clean, cook, and keep everything running smoothly in the background. She was always the one in the shadows, rarely noticed, yet integral to the daily operations of the Croft estate. Elena had seen the family at their best and their worst. She had witnessed Julian in his moments of triumph and in his darker, more vulnerable hours. She knew him not as the billionaire mogul, but as a father, a husband, and a man who had never quite learned to relax or trust others. She knew the story of his rise to wealth and the hard choices he had made. But she also knew how kind he could be, especially to her. Over the years, they had built a quiet respect for one another. While the doctors argued about the next treatment plan, Elena observed. She was an intuitive woman, one who had always paid attention to the smallest details, even when others ignored them. She noticed the way Julian's body had started to react differently over the course of his illness. She noticed the faint, almost imperceptible tremor in his hands and the way his breathing became shallow whenever the doctors tried to approach him with their treatments. One afternoon, as Elena was tidying up his room, she made a discovery that sent a chill down her spine. Beneath his pillow, buried deep inside the silk cover, was a small old-fashioned bottle, its contents glowing faintly in the dim light. It wasn't a medication, but a strange liquid she had never seen before. The bottle had a kind of aura around it, almost as if it were too powerful for the light to touch. Elena knew the mansion inside out. She cleaned every inch, every drawer, every corner. But this bottle, she was sure it hadn't been there the previous day. Her curiosity piqued. She picked it up carefully and examined the label. It read only one word: vermis. A sense of dread washed over her. She had heard whispers around the estate that Julian had been working on something controversial, something tied to old-world remedies. But she had no idea it was connected to this, whatever it was. Elena's mind raced. Was this what the doctors had missed? Was this the reason Julian was deteriorating? She couldn't be sure, but something told her it was important. With a deep breath, she made the decision. Elena knew she couldn't just sit idly by while the man who had given her a job all these years was slipping away. She had to act. She had to find out what the bottle was. Elena carefully slipped the bottle into her apron pocket and left Julian's room. She moved quickly, not wanting anyone to see what she was doing. She knew that if anyone else found out, they'd dismiss her as just a housekeeper, as someone who had no business in the matters of medicine or illness. But deep down, Elena knew that she couldn't just let Julian die without trying to understand what was really happening. The next day, Elena went to Julian's library, a vast room filled with hundreds of books, manuscripts, and rare texts. Julian had always been fascinated by history, by ancient civilizations, and especially by old remedies and healing arts that were no longer in use. Elena had seen him read about them before, but she never thought much of it. Now she needed to find out what he had been studying, what could have led him to this point. She sifted through shelves and cabinets, looking for anything that might explain the mysterious bottle. Hours passed, and Elena grew more and more frustrated. But then she found it. Tucked away in the back of a hidden compartment was a journal, its cover worn, its pages yellowed with age. She opened it carefully, feeling the weight of its history. It was Julian's grandfather's journal. The entries inside were filled with strange descriptions of remedies and practices that seemed otherworldly, even supernatural. One particular entry caught Elena's eye. It was about a concoction called vermis, a mysterious liquid used by ancient healers. The journal described how the remedy was meant to boost vitality, enhance strength, and prolong life. But there was a dark side to it. The journal warned that the vermi could only be used by the pure of heart, and anyone who misused it would suffer severe consequences. The formula, it seemed, had been passed down through generations, each one using it in secret, hoping to escape death's inevitable grip. Elena's hands trembled as she closed the journal. She now understood what was happening. The vermis was slowly poisoning Julian, draining his life force and replacing it with something darker, more sinister. The billionaire had unknowingly walked down a path that had been laid out long before him, one that led to a fate far worse than death. Elena knew what had to be done. She couldn't just sit back and watch him die. She gathered the family and the doctors, telling them everything she had discovered. At first, they were skeptical. How could a housekeeper, someone with no medical training, possibly know more than the world's best physicians? But as the pieces of the puzzle came together, they realized Elena had been right. They quickly worked to counteract the effects of the vermis, using every treatment they could find to detoxify Julian's body. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick. The process was painful and grueling, but slowly, Julian began to regain his strength. His color returned to his face, and the shaking in his hands subsided. The billionaire, who had once been on the brink of death, was now recovering thanks to the unlikely hero who had spotted what everyone else had missed. For days, they fought to save him. Elena stayed by his side, making sure he was comfortable, watching his progress, and ensuring the doctors followed through with the antidote. She worked quietly with a resolve that no one else seemed to have. She knew that without her, without the discovery she made, Julian would not have survived. When Julian finally opened his eyes fully, he looked at Elena with gratitude. His voice was, but it carried a weight of deep emotion. "I owe you my life," he said, his voice breaking. "I don't know how to thank you." Elena smiled, though her heart ached at the sight of him. "No, Mr. Croft, you owe me nothing. I just did what I had to do." The Croft family learned an invaluable lesson that day. Sometimes the answers don't come from the experts, but from the quiet observers who see the world differently. Elena, the housekeeper, had saved Julian's life. She had shown them all that sometimes it's not the riches or the education that matter, but the heart and intuition of a person who truly cares.